Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Rez. In this video, I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be ranking all of the current legendary Jakobs weapons that we have in Borderlands 3 and going back and getting all these pictures just made me realize how many legendaries are actually in the game. These are just Jakobs alone, and obviously there are way more manufacturers, which is just crazy. And if you guys would like to see the other manufacturers, let me know in the comments below. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. I'm on the road to 10,000 subs, and I would love to have you on this journey. I truly appreciate it. Starting off, if you don't know the way these skill tiers work, essentially S is the best of the best, A, B, C, D is just your normal ratings, and F is just awful. You're never going to use it. And these are my opinions, and I'm not only going to be focused on the usage in the game, specifically for things like maybe 10 or 11 that will be in consideration, but also if it has a really cool quest behind it, or if it has something nostalgia based with it, I will consider that. But for the most part, like I said, it is going to be just how it performs, but obviously if it's something cool, it can get up a little higher. And starting off is the Amazing Grace. If you don't know, this is a pistol that came from a really cool quest actually from the base game, and when you hit an enemy, it's going to refund a bullet to the magazine. It's a pretty cool effect, but it's not really that good at all. It's not going to compete with any other Jakobs pistols we have, or just any other pistol from other manufacturers, but it is fun, and I will give it a C due to the quest that you get it from. And it's, like I said, it's a pretty cool pistol. Now, next up we have the Becca. The Becca, when the game first came out, was definitely like A tier, B tier. Then it kind of started to fall off. And again, the Becca comes from a pretty annoying quest you have to get it from. You essentially just have to restart the entire game to get the Becca. So taking that in consideration and the most recent buff that it's gotten, it could be S tier damage wise, but I'm going to put it in the A tier due to the fact that you have to go through this annoying tedious process of doing a whole new playthrough just to get the Becca, unless obviously you can get it from somebody or have a save file. But it is very, very good. If you're going just damage wise and usage wise, it probably is going to be in the S tier compared to other Jakobs weapons, but I'm going to put it in the A tier for now. So Bird of Prey right here, this is a sniper that came from the new vault card system. Bird of Prey is not that good, honestly. It is cool, and it is a nice little nostalgia reference, but usage wise, it has a 33% chance to spawn a other projectile that can do like a good amount of damage. But I'm gonna honestly put it in the D tier. If it wasn't for the nostalgia of the weapon, it would probably go on F. Like, you're just never gonna run this over any other sniper. And yes, before anybody gets mad, you can make it work. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, so to speak. You pretty much any of these guns, you can make them work on specific characters or builds, but just gunned alone, it's not gonna perform better than a lot of the other guns in the game. And next we have the Bloom. This is a Jakobs weapon. When you hold the trigger down, it's gonna release the whole mag, which is really, really cool. It's a pretty cool legendary effect, and it's actually pretty good too. It's definitely not again, one of the greatest in the game, but you can absolutely make this thing work, and it can be very, very good. So I'm actually gonna give it a B. I don't think it's as good as the backup, but it's definitely better than some other pistols in the game, and it's definitely not S tier, but it is really, really good. If you get that charging mechanic down, you can do some crazy things with it. Then next up we have the Clairvoyance. This is a Jakobs assault rifle that's actually in the cryo element. This is a very, very good assault rifle. A lot of people love this thing. This is a lot of people's favorite weapon. It was very good when released. It started to fall off a little bit, but then they buffed it again, and it's still really good. I don't think it's S tier, but I am going to put it in the A tier with the Becca. I will say the Becca is a little better than the Clairvoyance, but I do think it deserves the A tier due to how the lifespan of the game has went on, and a lot of people love it. It's a lot of people's favorite gun, like I was saying. It's one of my favorite guns too. Super, super fun to use, and it is a Jakobs weapon with the element on it, which isn't too rare in this game, but it is still a little unique benefit. Then next up we have the Cocky Bastard. This is a legendary sniper rifle that when you zoom in, I think it's zoom in, it could just be normal. Pretty sure when it's zoom in though, you do additional shock damage on top of the normal damage it does. It's again a okay legendary effect, but compared to other snipers in the game, it's just not as good, especially even compared to some other Jakobs snipers we have in this list. So I'm honestly gonna give it a C tier. Like, it's definitely not bad. You can make it work. It's definitely better than Bird of Prey, but it's not too good. The Gatling Gun next. This is a legendary that is in its name. It's a Gatling Gun. You hold the trigger down, you're gonna start firing really, really fast. It's really, really cool to use, but it's not the greatest. It is better than some weapons in the game, but I would not recommend using it. You can, like I said, make it work in some builds, but I'm gonna give this a C tier as well. Definitely better than the Bird of Prey, but it's not as good as something like the Bloom with the backup. Then we have the Hand of Glory. This is a quest specific legendary that you can get pretty early in the game, or kind of halfway through the game. It's really good when you get it. Then is okay later on in the game. It doesn't hold up to obviously something like the Becca or the Clairvoyance, but comparing it to all the other assault rifles that we have, it's just not as good. And I'm honestly going to put this in the C tier as well. This could go to D, but I don't think it's D tier. Like I said, when you first get it, it can be really good. Plus, it is some people's first legendary that you get, which can be kind of nostalgic due to the fact that you get it from a quest, which is cool. But next up, we have the Headsplosion. This is a sniper rifle that does splash damage. That is essentially a legendary effect. This can be really cool, specifically with some builds if you're playing a splash style build, because most snipers don't do splash damage. Of course, some do, but this can really play into that style, and you can kind of change your build up around it. So I'll give it a B. It's definitely not like a top tier sniper, but it is a very, very good sniper. And like I said, combining with some builds, you can pop off this thing. Now we have the Hellwalker. Now, I think we already all know what this is going to be. When the game first launched, the Hellwalker was insanely good. It's still really, really good. It started to fall off a little bit, but they gave it like a 300% damage buff, and it's still one of the best shotguns in the entire game. So for our lad Hellwalker, we are 100% putting that into S tier, hands down, like no other option. But then we have a new sniper rifle, the Ionic Disruptor. This is gonna let you shoot through enemy shields, which is cool. Plus, when you melee an enemy, you shoot them, you do a shock like explosion. This is actually a really good sniper as well. I don't know if it's going to be as good as some other snipers, but it is really fun to use. I will give it a B tier. You probably can move this to A, but I'm going to give it B because I don't use it too much compared to other snipers. And again, these are my opinions. If you love the Ionic Disruptor, you might think it's S tier, but just as a general gun standpoint, it's probably B. Like I said, maybe A. If you could put it in the halfway mark, I would, but I'm going to keep it in B just to be safe. Now we have the King's or Queen's Call right here. These, when you get a crit, you're going to spawn ricochets that will go out and hit enemies, and every time you crit, you also add ammo back to the magazine. When the game first launched, these things were one of the best weapons in the game. It was crazy. They had to nerf it. They had to nerf the interaction with additional axe skill elements that will spawn more projectiles. And throughout all the nerfs, I think they have buffed it slightly, like one time. It's still pretty good. It's just not going to be, like I said, as good as some other options. You can make this work again, especially on characters like Flak. But I'm going to give it a B tier. This could go to C, but it is a little bit better than stuff in the C tier category, but it's not what it once was. Then we have the Lead Sprinkler. This is another Jakobs assault rifle. This actually got buffed, and you can't do some crazy things to this if you have splash damage radius, but the way it works is when you shoot an enemy, these grenades essentially are going to come out the enemy and fall on the ground beside them, but they don't really hit enemies that much unless you have splash damage radius bonuses. But if you do get that, it can be pretty good. It's not the greatest. It's like not going to compare to something like the backup. I will give it a C. This could go to B, but I'm going to put it into C due to the fact that you kind of really have to build around the gun to make it work, and it's not just naturally good. Then we have the little Yeti. This is a Jakobs pistol that when you shoot an enemy, and I think it's also when you melee, you kind of just literally yeet them across the map. You send them flying. This is a very fun pistol, and it's also pretty good too. It has a pretty nice damage stat, and you can definitely clear some rooms with this thing. Like, it's definitely not bad at all. I don't think it's A tier. I'm gonna put this in the B tier as well. It's definitely a little better than the King's and Queen's Call, maybe depending on what character you're playing, but this could go to A, but I'm gonna leave it in B. Then we have the Love Drill. The Love Drill is actually really, really good. This is essentially a Unforgiven that can shoot a little faster, and you're gonna add ammo back to the magazine. Plus you get, I think it's bonus shock damage too on some shots. Really, really good pistol. A lot of people used to use this thing. I think it's still really good. It just kind of went under the radar with other stuff in the game, but I'm going to actually give this an A. I really, really like this pistol, and I would definitely recommend using this. Now, the Lucky 7. Lucky 7 is an interesting one because it can either be absolute F tier or it can be S tier. And the reason for that is the way it works. When you reload the gun, you're going to get some benefits, and sometimes you get lucky. You can get all additional 7 benefits on the gun, which will obviously make it S tier. But if you have like no benefits or just a really bad benefit, only 1 benefit, it can be F tier. So it is very weird to rank this. I will give this a tier due to the fact that, like I said, you can make it really good. It just does take a little work. But when you do get it working, like I said, it's going to go to S tier, and it's pretty nostalgia for the game as well. A lot of people use this thing, especially pair it with, you know, some of the like Halloween event annoyance where you regen ammo. You're going to be able to destroy with this thing. Now, another pistol of Maggie. Now, we probably already all know where this one is going to go as well. Maggie is a classic. It is insanely good. This is essentially a shotgun pistol. You shoot out multiple pellets at once. You could just tear through enemies with this thing, and it has by far been one of my favorite weapons in the entire game with something like the Hellwalker. since it started. So this is 100% going in the S tier. If you have any arguments why it shouldn't be in the S tier, I would love to hear them. Maybe it could go to A for its damage profile, but I'm putting it in S tier. I really enjoyed the Maggie. Now, next is the True Monocle. This might be weird because I actually really do enjoy the True Monocle. I think it's actually a pretty good sniper rifle. Is it as good as obviously some other snipers we have in the game? Definitely not, but I do think it deserves the B tier. It has gotten buffed, and the downside is that it has a super, long range sight. But if you get the, interaction with that down, you get insane crit numbers when you zoom down the scope with it, and you could just instantly one-shot a lot of enemies. So I will put the True Monocle in B. It's really good for mobbing on Amara, but for bossing, it might not be the greatest. Now we have the Mutant. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really haven't used the Mutant that much. I don't think it's a bad weapon from what I've seen, though. But due to the fact that I just I guess I haven't had an attraction towards the gun, it hasn't really drawn me to it. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. I'm pretty sure they have buffed this a little bit, so it probably is decent, especially if you have a build going around it. So I will put that in the C tier. And next up we have the Nimble Jack. Now this is a weapon some of you guys might have forgotten about, but the way this gun works is when you jump in the air, you get insane accuracy bonuses. This shotgun turns into a sniper rifle and you could just dome people with it. It's actually pretty good. It's really fun to use. I will put this in the B tier. I do think it is pretty decent, actually. It's not going to replace something like the Hellwalker by any means, but it has a pretty fun playstyle, and I would definitely recommend trying it out. Then the One Pump Chump. This is essentially its brother right here. Its bigger brother. The One Pump Chump is better than Nimble Jack. They kind of perform the same way. The One Pump Chump just already has accuracy bonuses and a ton of crit damage bonuses, so it's going in the A tier. Honestly, I might even move it to the S tier, because if you have like a build specifically going around this, it can destroy people, and plus it has a very cool, quest-ish, not really a quest. It's like you have to type in a passcode to get the boss to spawn to get this, and people were trying to figure out the passcode in the game for slot, so it does have a little history for it. So I actually will keep it in the S tier. I think it does deserve the S tier spot, and maybe not for damage profile, but just for the nostalgia base alone, and it's also really good. I'll put it in the S tier. Then we have the Robin's Call. This is a shotgun that's going to return ammo back when you crit, kind of like other Jakobs weapons. It's decent. It's definitely not like the greatest. You don't ever really see people run this. I will put it in the B tier because I don't think it's bad, so to speak, but it's just not going to be as good as something like the Hellwalker or One Pump Chump. Then we have the Roland's Call, and I probably butchered that pronunciation, but you know what this is. This is a very good assault rifle. It works just like the King's Call, except it's an assault rifle form, and it is decent. It kind of got hurt with the ASC elemental projectile nerf that happened, but it is still good. I'm gonna put this in the B tier alongside with the Kings and Queens Call, because I do think people still use this, and people still enjoy it. Now the Seventh Sense, really good pistol. Again, the same thing kind of with the Kings and Queens Call or the Roland's Call. It kind of got butchered a little bit when the elemental projectile nerf came through. You could shoot this thing and just spawn a bunch of projectiles. The way it works is when you shoot an enemy, crit or body shot, and reload the gun, all these projectiles are going to start floating. You reload, they all collapse on the enemy you shot and do a ton of damage. This thing is really fun. I really wish you could get anointments on this, but I'm going to put it in the A tier due to the fact that it used to be insanely good. It's still already good, and it doesn't even have anoints on it. If it had anoints, it could possibly move to the S. Now we have the Skull Masher. This is another classic. This is a very good sniper rifle, and compared to all the other sniper rifles I've already ranked, this is definitely one going in the S tier. The Skull Masher is insanely good. It is essentially kind of like the Maggie. It's kind of like a shotgun sniper. It shoots out multiple pellets at once. You can fire really fast, do a ton of DPS with it. It's good for single targets. It's good for bossing, and it will just absolutely tear through enemies in the game. Definitely try the Skull Mash out if you haven't gotten it, because it is a blast to use. Now next up we have Sledge's shotgun, and this is also another very nostalgia driven legendary. It was in Borderlands 2, it was in Borderlands 1. You actually could get it from Sledge in Borderlands 1, which is awesome. But this, it's not bad. It always is just looked down upon because of the Hellwalker, but they actually did buff it, and you can make some pretty interesting builds on revolving around it. And with this nostalgia factor, I'm actually going to give it an A tier. It's definitely not as good as the Hellwalker, and it probably is going to be better than some shotguns. It's definitely better than something like the Robin's Call, but it's still not going to be S tier. And with the nostalgia, I'll give it A. You could move it to B if you absolutely just don't like the gun, but I think nostalgia wise it could go to A. Then we have the Stone Thrower, and this, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is another legendary weapon I really just haven't used much. I'm pretty sure it's probably decent, but I can't even think of the last time I've ever even used this. I'm gonna again just throw it in the C tier. Actually F tier is all alone down here. And I'm not saying this gun's bad when I put it in F tiers. I know some people are probably gonna think that, but I'm just gonna, you know, put one in the F tier so we have one down there. I just honestly haven't used it much to really rank it, so we'll change the F tier to not use much. Don't really know. I could move the mutant down here as well. You know, we'll do that as well. Let's just move the two that I really haven't used much, and you know, we'll throw them down there. But they obviously could be higher. And the next up we have the companion. The companion is actually a pretty interesting one as well. This is a incendiary Jakobs weapon. Every time you hit a crit, it's gonna ignite an enemy. This can work super well with some builds, like on levels of where a level 1 pistol of this can just insta kill a boss, which is insane. It is a little bit to work around though, and honestly, even with that, I'm just gonna put it in the B tier. It's not gonna be the greatest pistol in the game compared to something like, you know, the Maggie or even Lucky 7 or something like that, but it is really good. You're only really ever going to use it for those niche specific times you do have a build based on that, and you're never going to use it by itself. But that interaction is so good, I will move it to the B tier. Then we have the duck. The duck is actually a pretty slept on legendary pistol. I really enjoy it. It actually is really good too. You essentially just apply sticky bombs when you shoot an enemy, which can work with splash damage builds. I honestly think this does deserve the A spot. I know some people probably put in B, maybe even C, but I think if you give it a try, you'll understand why it's actually pretty good and why it's one of my favorite weapons in the game. Now we have the flood. The flood is a pretty nostalgia driven weapon as well. It was one of the first legendaries that you got that just fired insanely quick. You can just hold down the trigger and with the thing. Like it's crazy how fast it shoots. It's super fun. Although even with buffs, it's not the greatest. So I'm actually gonna put it in the C tier. And this might affect some people. You know, you could move it to B. It's like I said, it's not bad, but you're never going to use it over any of these other pistols I've already ranked. Then we have the Garcia. The Garcia is again actually a pretty good shotgun. They ended up buffing this later on in the game to make it pretty good. It's definitely not as good as some other shotguns. I will put it into A tier because I think if I put the Sledge shotgun in A tier, this definitely deserves A tier as well. But again, you know, something like Hellwalker is obviously just going to be better. The next up we have the Tidal Wave. Now again, I'm actually going to throw this in the F tier. This is another one I just haven't really used much. I'm not 100% sure where to rank it. This could possibly be like, you know, C or B tier. It could be pretty decent, but again, I haven't really used it much to, I guess, give it an accurate rating, so I'm just going to leave it down there. Now, but then we have TK's Wave right here, which actually did get buffed, and you could theoretically do more damage with the TK's Wave than something like the Hellwalker, but the way it works is so annoying, and you're just not really going to hit all your shots ever unless it's like a bigger boss. I'm going to put it in the A tier. Like it's good with the buff, but I don't think it deserves S tier just to the fact of the way it performs, to just the RNG of it. So I'm gonna leave it in A tier. If you're an absolute legend with it and can hit all your shots, you can probably move it to S tier because the damage on it can be crazy if you get the stuff working for you. Then we have the trick shot. The trick shot is a interesting weapon as well. This, when you shoot an enemy, your next shot is kind of gonna be like the flood and just instantly shoot all the bullets. Except this one does a lot of damage. The flood doesn't do that much damage. This one actually does a decent amount of damage. The trick shot is, I definitely think, an S tier level pistol. A lot of people actually compare the trick shot to the Maggie, depending on which one's better. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm straight up Maggie gang, but I do 100% think the trick shot does compete with it. It's very good. But next up we have the Unforgiven. Now this one again might be really weird to some of you because if you're just using the pistol, it's not that good. You might put it in F tier or D tier, but I'm gonna put it in S tier because it is 100% one of the best pistols in the game due to all the unique interactions it has. The way this game works, if you have a crit bonus on your weapon, which the Unforgiven has one of the largest crit bonuses in the entire game, if you have anything else critting with that gun out, you're going to get that bonus damage. Also, a lot of people crit swap with this weapon. That is kind of a looked down upon thing, and other people just don't tend to care about it. Whichever way you are, it's still a really good, you know, thing you can do with it. You can, you know, apply sticky bombs to enemies, swap with the Unforgiven, and you're just gonna melt people with it. Like, it is insanely good. And even if you're actually using the gun, if you have like a mobby build with a Mara that uses ties that bond, using the gun itself is actually gonna be really good too. But just due to all the little unique interactions you can have with it, I definitely think it deserves S tier, and it has completely changed the way the game is played. And also, it has a really cool reload animation. It's one of the few guns in the game that actually have its own like really cool unique reload animation. I definitely think that with that alone, it deserves S tier. But then we have the Unseen Threat, another sniper rifle that is really good. This one is gonna spawn, you know, essentially ricochet rockets and go out and hit people. When this thing first launched, it was absolutely insane. I still think it's really, really good, and it's definitely better than some of the other Jakobs sniper rifles that we already rated. And I'm gonna move it to the S tier spot right here. I definitely think it deserves S tier. Compared to other snipers, it's just gonna be better. Compared to something like the Skullmaster, the Skullmaster is good, but the unseen threat can kind of do what the Skullmaster does, but also spawn these projectiles that ricochet and can insta-kill bosses if you're lucky enough. But then next up, we have the Wagon Wheel. This is actually a pretty good pistol. You don't hear a lot of people talking about it anymore, but you know, back in the days, it was actually pretty decent. And compared to some of the other pistols, I definitely think this deserves a higher tier spot. It's definitely better than something like the Amazing Grace. And I'm honestly gonna put it in the A tier. I'm not gonna put it in B. I'm gonna put it in A, because if you get a build work around this thing and you have bullets ricocheting everywhere, you can just melt entire rooms with this thing. And you know, due to that nostalgia fact alone, I think it deserves A. There are definitely better pistols, but it is really, really good. Then finally, we have the Wedding Invitation. Now this one is gonna be probably the most interesting one out of all these, due to the fact that when it launched, the Wedding Invitation was broken. It was so good, so good. But as time went on, and we have a renewed Wedding Invitation now, and they haven't really changed it, even with all the changes that has came through Borderlands 3 from the whole year that it's been launched. It's kind of fallen behind now, and it's still decent. It's still like not a bad weapon, but compared to some of the other snipers, it's not that good. But you also have to take into consideration that everyone was going for this sniper. People were trying to find the best ways to farm it through save files, try to find people to trade with them, get it. Like, it was so good. It was that good back in the day. And like I was saying, with that nostalgia fact, I think it could go to S tier, but being the fact that it's just not that good anymore, I'm gonna actually put it in A tier. I think A is a pretty nice spot for this. Like, it's like I said, you can still use it and it still has a nice history to it, but it's just not going to perform over something like the Unseen Threat now or something like the Skullmaster. But that is my list. Let me know what you guys think. It's funny there's only actually one D tier option, which is the Bird of Prey, but again, let me know what your list is. I will actually post this link in the description if you guys would like to go, you know, make this for yourself. If you want to send me a picture on Twitter, my Twitter handle is actually right here at RedsShortTV. You can send it to me and we can see what you came up with. Also, if you want to leave some comments, you know, telling me how wrong I am with some of these things, or some of the things that you would have swapped around, you can let me know in the comments below as well. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would be down to do more like this. Like I said in the beginning, just let me know if you guys would like to see this with other manufacturers, or just specific, you know, weapons in general, because this was actually really fun. And you know, this will give you some more insight on what I think about some of the weapons in the game, and also you can let me know what you guys think about it as well. But that is going to do all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.